immortal zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, Dame Helen Mirren has said that despite being a feminist, she believes the next James Bond has to be a chap.
OK, she said that she believes it just doesn't work, and by having a woman as Bond, the project becomes something else entirely.
So we are asking the question, could Bond ever be a woman?
Well, we're joined by a former what is termed Bond girl, Jenny Hanley, and and there is... we weren't expecting you, but it's really 007 podcast contributor John Kell there as well. Jenny, you've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, been involved in it. What's your take?
I think James Bond has to be a male, because he came from the imagination of Ian Fleming. If you want a female 007, don't ride on his coattails and take the fame that has come from his character, James Bond. Write your own.
Yeah, you see, that's what I tend to think. But
No, I just think that you just go 007. The problem is, right, the last Bond film, he died. James Bond died. I mean, there was a... Oh, sorry.
Great, I haven't seen that one.
Sorry, yeah. I think everybody pretty much now knows that he definitely... I mean, there was an absolutely... It wasn't even did he or didn't he, can he or can he not survive. It was 100% gone. So it's now time for a clean... The nice thing about a clean sheet, surely, John, is that you can actually go, right, so 007, let's do the 007, and then we can do different stories, because the books that have been written by Ian Fleming have been well and truly milked, haven't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first. GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at. Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 27th of September. Live across the UK, this is Saturday Morning Live.
Breaking news, 2 migrants die in the Channel overnight as a fresh surge of small boats makes the illegal crossings this morning.
It's a reflection of the vibrant talent in the Labour Party that we've got loads of people who would make great leaders.
And it's the eve of Labour conference. Members are arriving in Liverpool this morning, but will events be overshadowed by speculation on Sir Keir Starmer's premiership? Josh McAllister spoke about the levels of talent in the Labour Party earlier.
This government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
And backlash continues to grow over the government's digital ID plans announced yesterday. But is Labour at odds over the issue? We'll be taking a look at a potential divide in the party.
And a GBNews investigation has revealed that thousands of British police officers are off duty due to mental health issues, with warnings that actual figures could be higher due to stigma and fear of career damage.
Fresh reports this morning that Chancellor Rachel Reeves thinks Britain needs to sign an ambitious migration deal with the EU that allows young Europeans to live and work in Britain. Are we about to see free movement again? The biggest stories, boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Olivia Utley.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here.
So we've got a busy show here this morning. It's the eve of Labour Party conference. The Labour Party is in a pretty rocky state at the moment, and now there's an internal divide about digital IDs.
Yeah, all happening here and so much to get stuck into. So please get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But before we do anything else, let's go to Sophia Hill for your latest news headlines.
Charlie, thank you. A very good morning. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your top stories. Labour's annual party conference opens in Liverpool tomorrow against a backdrop of pressure and protest. The Grassroots Trailer of Truth campaign, backed by farmers, veterans and rural families, will stage a mass rally outside, warning of broken promises to Britain's countryside. Inside, MPs are said to be frustrated with Andy Burnham's leadership manoeuvrings, with party chairwoman Anna Turley urging unity behind Sir Keir Starmer. And with Reform UK topping the polls, Sir Keir has warned of a battle for the soul of Britain as he calls for progressives to take on the politics of grievance. Now, GB News can reveal that 2 migrants have died in the English Channel overnight after a small boat got into trouble off the French coast. Despite being rescued and taken ashore, paramedics were unable to revive the women. Several others were hospitalised with hypothermia. It comes as more than 200 migrants have already attempted the crossing this morning, the first since over 1,000 arrived last weekend. With calmer weather, Border Force is braced for what maritime sources have described as potential red days, with up to 2,000 more arrivals expected over the coming days. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticised Western allies for recognising a Palestinian state. Speaking at the UN General Assembly, he said that leaders in countries including France, Britain, Australia and Canada had sent out what he called the message that, quote, murdering Jews pays off. It comes as Israel faces mounting international pressure over its war in Gaza, now nearing its second year. Elon Musk and the Duke of York have both been named in newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. Documents from the US House Oversight Committee list Musk as a potential visitor to Epstein's private island in December 2014, 6 years after he became a registered sex offender. They also show Prince Andrew as a passenger on Epstein's private jet. Musk has previously said he declined Epstein's invitation, while the Duke has consistently declined any wrongdoing. A GB News investigation has revealed that thousands of police officers are off duty due to mental health issues. Freedom of Information requests show at least 2,740 officers across the UK are on psychological leave, including more than 400 in the Met alone. The Police Federation says that the real number could be higher, warning that many officers don't report problems for fearing of harming their careers. Some have now been absent for more than 4 years. And hundreds of thousands more children will be soon offered a free breakfast at school under a new government plan. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has announced that 2,000 primary schools across England will join the scheme, backed by £80 million. Ministers say that the meals could save families up to £450 a year in childcare costs. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour, but now it's back to Charlie and Olivia.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with me, Charlie Peters, and Olivia Rutley.
Yes, and just before we move on, our very own Charlie Peters here has been nominated for a very prestigious award. He's up for Broadcast Journalist of the Year in the Society of Editors Media Freedom Awards. We're all wishing Charlie the very best of luck in these esteemed awards. Good luck, Charlie.
Thank you, and it's a great honour and a privilege, of course, for GB News, more importantly, to be recognised along that great list of fabulous journalists. But that's about me. Let's go back to what you're all here for, which is the breaking news this hour, because 2 migrants have died crossing the Channel amid a fresh surge in small boats that have made the crossing this weekend.
Yes, the tragedy unfolded off the French coast near Boulogne, when a packed migrant boat got into difficulty after midnight last night.
Now, 2 unconscious female migrants were rescued from the boat and taken ashore, but paramedics were unable to resuscitate them.
Let's get a quick update with human rights lawyer Shahrukh Khan. Now, Shahrukh, obviously, the problem, as far as I can see it, is that it is too easy for migrants to get on these boats, which are incredibly dangerous for them. In Australia, they managed to cut these illegal crossings, cut out deaths in the sea by just having a proper deterrent policy in place. Surely blood is on Labour's hands here.
I mean, I agree in terms of what you said in the end. Yes, blood is on our government's hands. So, of course, I mean, and our partners, allies, other European countries, other safe countries that don't have any safe legal routes. So there's lots we can do here. Obviously, we've been talking about safe legal routes for ages. We've done that for Ukraine. We've done that for Afghanistan. You know, the first legal routes after ages, maybe decades. But obviously, they're very limited in scope. Other people in other countries don't have that. But for others saying that, you know, what else can we do? Just look at when Labour wanted to bring in, obviously, the disastrous, I mean, I'm not sure it's going to help, but the one-in, one-out scheme. So somehow, suddenly, within weeks, they've come up with a system where in France, we can assess claims, we can see who's entitled, we can bring those people over. So why can't we just do that? Why haven't we actually been doing that for ages? Why isn't that the actual system? People reach Europe, people reach France, people who want to come to the UK, they apply, we consider their claims, we have stations there, we have centres there, and we see who needs to be brought over, and we bring them over safely and humanely. So it's just, you know, obviously...
They're already, Shawib, if they're in France, they're already in a safe and legal place, as you refer to these, the necessity to bring in safe and legal routes. What Olivia was just referring to is that when Australia dealt with these boats, they didn't instigate new, fresh routes for asylum. They just put in a hard deterrent against those crossing. Now, of course, the geography is different, but what Olivia's saying, and what I think a lot of GB News viewers and listeners will be thinking, is that this one-in, one-out deal isn't a deterrent. This just goes to show the only thing stopping crossings is bad weather. And these crossings today come after a week of bad weather, and the migrant smugglers are getting bolder. They're pushing out these boats in choppy conditions, and this is leading to deaths. More routes wouldn't slow that down. People want to come to Britain because they know we're a soft touch and they know that human rights law will support them.
I mean, what you're saying about routes, so yeah, the point is safe legal routes would obviously cross the, you know, stop the crossings. I just don't understand how that's possible. I mean, what does that even mean, that even if we have safe, you know, why didn't we have dangerous crossings from Ukraine, from Afghanistan during that few period, from Hong Kong?
We do have dangerous crossings from Afghanistan. We do have dangerous crossings from Afghanistan,
yes,
Shawib
Khan. Because we...
Well,
we've lost him there.
We've lost him there, but thank you very much, Shawib Khan. Good to get an update on that. And Labour members are arriving in Liverpool this morning ahead of their annual conference, which begins tomorrow.
Now, events could be overshadowed by growing speculation on Sir Keir Starmer's premiership, with reports suggesting that Sir Sadiq Khan may have his sights on number 10, as well, of course, as the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. And a new poll released yesterday suggested Nigel Farage is on course to become Prime Minister. Now, here's what the Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing, Josh McAllister, had to say about those leadership rumours this morning.
a reflection of the vibrant talent in the Labour Party that we've got loads of people who would make great leaders. And look, the other thing I'd say to you, you spend a lot of time with politicians. You'll know a lot of them who are very keen to be in positions where they can make the biggest difference possible, and that's the most favourable take that I've got on it. I know Andy Burnham myself. I've worked with him on youth justice issues in Greater Manchester. He's doing a really good job there. But look, this conference is all about the plan we've got as a team to improve this country.
Well, joining us now is former Mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston. Now, Andy, I was at the Labour conference last year, just a few months after Labour had won the general election. Jubilant atmosphere. Now, I can't imagine anything more different. It seems as though half the Labour Party is on manoeuvres and they want Keir Starmer out. Do you think that the Prime Minister will be presiding over next year's Labour Party conference?
I don't think he will be presiding over the conference in 2026. And I think this year's conference will be more like a wake than a party, won't it? The big issue is actually going to be Andy Burnham, isn't it? Casting a very long shadow. And what it reminds me of is whoever was Prime Minister while Boris Johnson wasn't Prime Minister would be absolutely tortured at Tory conferences, because Boris Johnson would turn up and everyone would flood around and he was the talking point. Their status and standing in the party was wholly emasculated. And I think that's what's going to happen. All the media are going to be following Andy Burnham around. I mean, I've just heard that Sadiq Khan, there's rumours that he would be interested. I don't think he would be a serious candidate, actually, even if the story has truth to it. But Andy Burnham is a very credible and serious candidate. He's stood twice before to be leader of Labour. And there's no doubt that he wants the job. And there's no doubt that Labour are increasingly frustrated with Keir Starmer. They're in a terrible position. And this year's conference will be like a wake, I'm sure.
Andy, you say that the media will be following Andy Burnham around, but I think actually in many cases Andy Burnham is following the media around. He's been very happy to give plenty of interviews, hasn't he, including an extensive one with The New Statesman, where he gave pretty stark criticism, basically, of the current British economic strategy, indirect criticism of the Prime Minister, saying that we need to stop being in hoc with the bond markets, sort of comments that has created quite a significant backlash from many Labour MPs, many speaking publicly about Andy Burnham's intervention. This points now to a sort of open warfare between Burnham and loyalist pro-Starmer MPs.
I think it is pretty open, Charlie. I don't think it's overtly hostile yet, but clearly Andy Burnham's not hiding what he's up to. As I say, he stood twice before. He's very ambitious and he's very clever, because by making really potentially dangerous statements about ignoring the bond markets, about borrowing more money, he knows that that will really excite and motivate the Labour membership. And of course, it's the Labour membership that's going to have a key role in deciding who the leader is. It doesn't matter what you or I think, or someone, you know, down at number 12 Acacia Avenue thinks. It's about the Labour membership who chose Jeremy Corbyn, who back left-wing traditional Labour ideals. So Burnham's playing to that crowd very cleverly and probably very effectively. People are frustrated with Starmer because he talked very left and has got into power and is acting more centrist by most people's view.
In quite a punchy interview with The Times this morning, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, issues a sort of veiled threat to Andy Burnham. She says there that he is... Basically, she's saying that he's on manoeuvres, and she points out that he has promised to finish his term as Manchester Mayor up to 2028. She's right about that. Is there actually a route for Andy Burnham to run as Labour leader? He doesn't even have a seat at the moment, and he said he's going to be the mayor until the end of 2028.
Well, I think what he can do, first of all, is if he wants to be an MP, I think that would be quite easy. He's got a lot of fans, a lot of allies in Labour. All he needs is someone with a relatively safe or very safe seat.
Is there any relatively safe seats for Labour anymore?
Well, that's a good question, but let's assume there is one for a minute. If they stand down, Burnham steps in as the candidate, wins the seat. Whether there is a safe seat is a different question. I think there are still some, you know. I think there are pockets of the country where the red wall remains intact in certain constituencies. And I think that he would be firm favourite. All bets are off, of course. There'd be no certainty, but I think he'd be firm favourite in a number of seats. But he needs a real jewel of a seat. It's no good having a traditional Labour seat. They're all vulnerable now, bar a handful, I would say.
Okay.
So there is a route. I think a metro mayor in most metro areas can also be an MP. We had Dan Jarvis, of course, down in Sheffield, South Yorkshire, doing both roles. So to my knowledge, there isn't a legal barrier on Andy Burnham doing both, to my knowledge.
I think it would be probably impossible, the Manchester Mayor job being so significant. But Andy Preston, great to speak to you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Olivia, it does feel a little bit like everyone's gasping for a bit of leadership, right, in the country at the moment. And Labour, it's almost like they're playing a game of Risk. You know, they've got they're moving their leadership around and thinking about territories they can work in.
And isn't it just bizarre that Labour won that enormous majority? We forget the scale of that Labour majority, just 3 seats fewer than Tony Blair in that landslide in '97. And yet, here we are talking about a leadership election, talking about Keir Starmer not being in charge in a year's time. And another issue, which, of course, it seems to be splitting the Labour Party, splitting the country too, is the backlash against the government's plans to introduce digital ID. There's a petition which has now grown to 1.5 million signatures against the idea.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer officially unveiled the plans for the Brit card in a speech yesterday, but there are suggestions that the Prime Minister and his Chief Secretary, Darren Jones, may be at odds over the issue.
Well, here's what Keir Starmer had to say in his announcement.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
Seems pretty clear, doesn't it? He wants to bring it in to tackle illegal migration. But then we fast forward a couple of hours, 3:50 p.m. And then here is the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, Darren Jones. Here's what he had to say.
If we get this digital ID system working and the public being with us, that will be the bedrock of the modern state and will allow for really quite exciting public service reform in the future.
So is the Labour Party really united on what digital ID will be used for? Well, joining us now is the chair of the Association of Digital Verification Professionals, David Crack. Now, David, Keir Starmer seems to be adamant that this is just about applying for jobs. Then you have Darren Jones saying that this will be the bedrock of the modern state. People who are worried about digital ID cards are worried that they're going to creep into far too many elements of everyday life. And very soon, they won't be about jobs. You'll need a digital ID card to, I don't know, go to the shops, for example. Is that a legitimate concern? What will they really be used for?
Well, good morning, Olivia and Charlie. Thanks for having us on the show. So there is a fair bit of misinformation out there, and I think one of the things that probably we're a bit frustrated about in the industry is there is actually quite a good news story here that's not cutting through. Right, so you will remember back a few months when the Data Act was being debated in Parliament, there was a lot of controversy around that. And what that act was bringing into place was something called the Trust Framework. And what that allows to happen is digital ID being delivered by private companies under oversight by the government. And what that means, Olivia, is that the country can get the benefits of digital ID without all the risks and concerns of surveillance and oversight that you're talking about there.
But David, are you really confident? And is there not some concern within the industry about cyber attacks, about outsourcing such important information to private companies and then them being susceptible to a ransomware attack from a hostile state or even terror groups all around the world? We've seen, for example, private companies working with the NHS being subject to cyber attacks and that delaying medical treatment. If our digital ID becomes tied to our entire lives, that's a huge avenue and opportunity for attack for those who wish to do Britain harm.
Well, I mean, one of the challenges that we have is, of course, we're in the 21st century, right? So whether we like it or not as a country, the rest of the world is moving towards digital ID. And we can see that in the productivity gains that are happening elsewhere that we're not actually experiencing in this country. So when the data bill was put forward, it was saying that there's £10 billion worth of benefit to the UK economy. And that's really what we're facing into is how do we generate that economic growth. But to your point, Charlie, yeah, there are concerns and legitimate concerns as well, right? I wouldn't want to dismiss those. But, that's been baked into the way that Data Act has been constructed, right? So if I can use an analogy, for example, right? We all have online bank accounts now. And if we're not happy with a particular bank, we can transfer our bank accounts to another bank. If we don't like paying a particular direct debit, we can switch it off so that company doesn't have access to our money. Well, the trust framework is delivering exactly that type of infrastructure, but for our data, right? So you can store your data in any company that you choose that is certified by the government to be able to hold that data. And then if you don't like that company, or you feel that it's under threat, or they're not looking after your data properly, then you can actually transfer that over to another company. So there's resilience in the process. And I think the most important thing, Charlie, is that worry about surveillance and cybersecurity is mitigated because you've got a private sector that's working in cooperation with each other. This isn't just a Labour thing, incidentally. These ideas have been worked on for 8 years or so under both administrations. And it's come out of the experience that we've had in this country before with trying to introduce national identity, right? Okay. This is a real world-class leading framework that we should be proud of. And the frustration is that ministers should be shouting about that from...
well, they are, David. They are shouting about it. They did headline speeches about it yesterday, saying it was going to be the bedrock of the modern state. But David Crack, Chair of the Association of Digital Verification Professionals, thank you so much for your time this morning. I have to say, Olivia, I'm not convinced that a framework or a legal act and working with the private sector is going to be a sufficient defence against those risks.
No, and I think that it's being sold as a way to try and stop people working illegally. But people who are working illegally in the black market, they're not exactly offering up an insurance number at the moment, are they? So it's hard to see how it's going to make a difference. And their employers, too, I think perhaps won't care very much.
They're already breaking the law. They're in the black market. So there we go. Anyway, still to come here on Saturday Morning Live, a GB News exclusive investigation has revealed that thousands of police officers are off duty due to mental health issues, with warnings that actual figures could be higher due to stigma and fear of career damage.
But next, Charles reportedly played a major role in Trump's Ukraine U-turn. We'll get the latest on that just after this. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's our notes, isn't it? So why shouldn't the public have to say on who's on notes? And we've had Shakespeare, of course, and we've had Winston Churchill, but let's have something a bit more up to date.
David Attenborough.
A brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
No, I've just come up with that, and I thought that was quite good. And then they also encourage ideas, nature, don't they? So I thought maybe some acorns.
Why not a beaver?
A beaver is a great idea, Claire.
You still cannot pass a Scottish note in anywhere in England, and for fear it will not be accepted as legal tender.
It is legal tender.
Of course,
but it is legal. Yeah, it is legal tender, same as an Ulster note.
Yeah, and see the minute they start to hold it up in the air, I'm like, I'm going to get you.
It's legal tender.
It's legal tender.
I prefer to use cash in most cases, OK? But we're finding that more and more people are not actually using cash, and then the Bank of Wokery have now said, let's get rid of the historical features on it, and let's move on with something more modern.
No,
so I'm glad you like that,
They
Norman.
want to get rid of it because it gives them control, it gives governments control, that they can see everything you're spending, everything you're doing, and how you're spending it. And I think it's really creepy.
So do I.
The other thing that's wrong with it, actually, buying by card, is that the people who own the transaction between the retailer and the customer are all American companies.
Yeah.
And they take a rake off of about 1%, 2% for nothing.
Remember?
That's all money going out the country.
Right, and by the time it's passed on, if you tap
and go, then it's diminished. Whereas if you had the physical £10, it's still £10.
Well, it's interesting that we three would like the feel of notes. And
I like the feel of notes as well.
That's four of us.
I feel rich when I've got cash in my
Younger
pocket.
people in general, I mean, I couldn't give my kids money. You say...
You can give me money anytime.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and let's take a look at the papers now with the former Labour advisor Matthew Laza and political commentator Duncan Barks. Great to see you both in the studio this morning. Hello. Right, I mean, there's a great story in the Telegraph. It's on the front page about the King's role in this U-turn in Donald Trump's position on Ukraine, Duncan, because of course he's had a bit of a total flip, hasn't he?
He has, and I think we can thank King Charles for this. It's a great story on the front page of the Telegraph, and for me this really shows the role the royal family still has to play when it comes to global diplomacy, right? And when you're dealing with dare I say it, quite a big ego like Donald Trump, having him in this country for a second unprecedented state visit. Of course, he came several years ago when Queen Elizabeth II was still alive. We saw those pictures. He comes back for a second time. It's now King Charles who's on the throne. He loves his stuff. He loves the pomp. He loves the ceremony. And he got some time with the King. And it does appear, according to the Telegraph, and we'll never know what the actual conversation, how it went or what was said.
Until Donald Trump starts talking about it, as he's prone to. Yeah.
In capitals.
Until yes.
But it appears that the King had some influence in steering Donald Trump's view regarding what should happen and what could happen regarding Ukraine, which is great news for Zelensky.
Yeah, look, I mean, absolutely. I think this is a sign of the old soft power that we hear a lot of talk about.
We talk about soft power. This is pretty hard.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and look, what a contrast to another royal who tried to get involved as a trade envoy, whose name we won't mention and spoil our morning with. So not to make it political, but I'm going to. I think that it's actually also, I mean, clearly the King is the trump card that was played, but it was played by the government.
Well, yes, well, of course, Keir Starmer bringing out that invitation.
The invitation, and maybe, so I want to know whose idea was it originally? Was it Starmer's or was it the now late
former
life Lord Mandelson? So maybe despite his many other travails, this was
parting gift.
His parting gift to the world. I think it probably was. Yes, it has got Mandelson written all over it. And so, although whatever else we can criticise him for, at least this was a good last action to realise the power the King could bring.
And it really is a huge about turn that Donald Trump, just to update people if they haven't been keeping abreast of this. I mean, he was saying that Ukraine would have to hand back land to Russia in order to win this war, and he's now saying that no, Ukraine.
And we all remember those horrible images from the Oval Office the first time when Zelensky went there. I mean, it was a form of bullying. It was
absolutely,
and I think a lot of the world just took a step back and thought, "Whoa, what's going on here?" So it is a complete U-turn, and as I say, and I agree with Matthew, it is a really good example of the royal family who aren't supposed to be political, but when it comes to global diplomacy, they have a role to play, and this is a great result.
Europe is appeasing Donald Trump, but they have no other option, because it's a really shameful, embarrassing fact that even 10 years after the annexation of Crimea, we're not in a position to defend ourselves as a continent. Europe was previously playing for time. I think now it's praying for time, and perhaps King Charles has bought us a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he literally may be the factor that's made the difference. And as you say, it's buying time for those, new weapons factories that, frankly, every major European country is rapidly building. But
should have had yonks ago.
Should have had years ago. Yeah. Will come online delivering what's needed over the next couple of years. But in the meantime, you need Trump support. And as you were saying, it's not only has he done the U-turn in terms of not handing land back to Russia, but he's actually been saying in interviews, hinting he's going to send more weapons at America's expense, not even making the Europeans pay for absolutely everything. So, well done, King Charles.
God save the King, absolutely. There's another really interesting story here in The Independent, that Kemi Badenoch expected to reveal that the Tories will support withdrawing from the ECHR. I mean, finally. All the Tories that I've been speaking to, Tory MPs, have been saying that that's what they're going to be doing at their conference for months and months and months. It's their only way to differentiate themselves from Labour without going full reform. Why on earth did Kemi Badenoch not do this a year ago? She seems to have sacrificed so much political capital on that. Could be the end of her party.
Absolutely, and I think it's not just why Kemi Badenoch didn't do it in the last year, it's why all the, I'm not going to name, there's too many, we haven't got time, Tory Prime Ministers we had over the last decade. I made a documentary on the European Convention on Human Rights with Andrew Neil in 2011, and it was all about should it go or should it stay? And here we are 14 years later, and the Tories went, that's obviously when the Tories were in government, and it was about whether the Tory government was going to ditch it, and they're still only now we're going to make their minds up. And of course the crucial thing is what they're going to propose in its place, because a British Bill of Rights could look pretty similar.
Duncan, she's making this announcement, or she's expected to make this announcement, and at the same time, have you seen this account online about the countdown, the Kemi countdown until the number of days left before
which is supposed
MPs
to be run by a Conservative MP,
yeah,
isn't it?
or Conservative staffers.
Yeah,
so that when they can hand, just so the audience knows, just before they can hand in letters to restart the leadership contest. Is this not evidence of just how late she's been on all these key issues?
Yeah, completely. I think she's under the illusion that she has 4 to 5 years on her side, and she doesn't. OK, we keep hearing, so we're going to, put our house in order and reveal policies as time goes on. She does not have the luxury of that time.
Absolutely.
OK, and I think it's still a divided party. I'm going to Manchester to be part of the conference in my capacity as a journalist. I'm fascinated to see what the atmosphere is going to be like. Is it going to be like a wake? Is she going to be able to rally the troops? What's it going to be like? But this is the worst-kept secret. We know this was going to happen, this ECA
So
task.
why? It just spent so long dilly-dallying about this, and in the meantime, we don't have time to talk about it now, but I'm sure we will next hour. Reform now looks set to win a general election. What an extraordinary set of circumstances.
Politics has changed massively, and I don't think the Tories have grasped that.
They haven't, no. Labour hasn't either.
And Matthew, you're seeing, obviously, all the Labour attacks now, basically ignoring the Conservatives' full throttle on reform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's in the mind of the Prime Minister today when he's just said that reform is the enemy is trying to gather together all those left of centre voters that are leaking, the Greens up in double figures, the Lib Dems in third place in some polls. And I think Starmer will be trying to do a bit of appealing to liberal left opinion this week to try and get those back after he's done his yesterday. Yesterday was about getting reform voters back with being tough on migration. Today's been tough on Farage to get the lefties back. Quite hard to do both. We'll see if it works.
It's tearing down a line there, Keir Starmer. I mean, we could talk about this all day, and I'm sure we will much more in the next hour. But thank you very much, Matthew Lazar and Duncan Barks. Still to come, a GB News investigation into the number of police officers off sick with mental health issues.
But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Charlie, thank you. The top story is at 10:30. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to take the fight to reform UK, the party he's described as, quote, enemy of the country. That's as he travels to Labour's annual party conference, which opens in Liverpool tomorrow, against a backdrop of pressure and protest. GB News can reveal that 2 migrants have died in the English Channel overnight after a small boat got into trouble off the French coast. Elon Musk and the Duke of York have both been named in newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. Documents from the US House Oversight Committee list Musk as a potential visitor to Epstein's private island in December 2014. The GB News investigation has revealed that thousands of police officers are off duty due to mental health issues. FOI requests show that at least 2,740 officers across the UK are on psychological leave, with more than 400 in the Met alone. And hundreds of thousands more children will soon be offered a free breakfast at school under a new government plan. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has announced that 2,000 primary schools across England will join the scheme, backed by £80 million. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Still to come on Saturday Morning Live.
The trailers of truth have taken the farming conversation to the heart of communities. Now they're on their way to take it to the heart of the Labour conference.
Tractors on the Labour Party's lawn. They'll be protesting outside the conference.
And a huge number of police officers are now off sick with mental health problems. A record number. What is it doing to the police service and why is it happening?
All this coming up next after the break here on Saturday Morning Live. Stay with us.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning wet from the west through the course of the day, then a day of sunshine and showers from Sunday, often windy over the weekend, particularly where we catch any heavy downpours. So it's going to be a very wet start across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. A couple of rain warnings issued here, a chance of some localised flooding. This rain will persist through much of the day and eventually will start to push into western areas of England and Wales. But to the east of this, it should be a mostly pleasant day, mainly dry, a few isolated showers in parts, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 19 degrees Celsius. The unsettled weather is here to stay through much of the afternoon and through the course of the evening, particularly across Scotland. Some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain continuing as this system steadily pushes its way eastwards. Quite blustery at times, particularly around western coasts. Any rain will eventually clear Northern Ireland, so starting to turn a little clearer here, but push into northwest England through the course of the evening. Once again, this rain is likely to linger through much of the evening, similar across Wales and southwest England, but across the far south and southeast, it should be mostly dry to finish off the day, but through the course of the night we'll eventually see this rain pushing its way eastwards. Once again, some heavier outbreaks, particularly across Scotland. Skies will begin to clear across parts of Wales, southwest England, and eventually as we head towards dawn across central parts of England too. So under those clear skies, a chance of some mist and fog, possibly some isolated frost patches, but for most it's a cloudier picture, so temperatures won't drop quite as low as they have done earlier in the week. Now, spells of rain will eventually clear their way across the southeast, persisting for a time across northern parts of Scotland. Still a chance of some heavier downpours here. Behind it, we'll see a mix of clouds, some showers starting to push in from the west, but for most it is going to be the better day of the weekend. Still feeling warm and pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching 19 degrees Celsius across the southeast. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. And a GB News investigation has revealed that thousands of British police officers are off duty due to mental health issues.
It's according to FOI requests sent by us to every single British police force. 2,740 officers are currently on psychological leave. Now, the Metropolitan Police, being the biggest force, tops the list with 429 affected officers.
The Police Federation warns that actual figures could be higher due to stigma and fear of career damage. Well, with us now is retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown. Hamish, what's going on here? Why are these figures just ballooning at the moment?
Well, Olivia, it's certainly a very unhappy picture, isn't it, for the police? But let us just remember, it is not just the police. Remember our services, the fire service, NHS. Lots of people are under pressure. In fact, only last night I met a charming lady who works as a nurse in a hospice. My goodness, she's under pressure. And it's a matter of trying to cope with this, which is very difficult, with competing demands and more work put on people. And I think with that, we've got to think about, particularly with the police, the reasons why are so many going off sick. Is it workloads? Is it being treated unfairly at work? And indeed, we have seen the police under pressure from the public. And this is maybe those in charge trying to make the police more efficient. Don't go to shoplifters, don't deal with antisocial behaviour. and there's one criticism after another. And I'm absolutely convinced some cases are absolutely, you can't defend the police at all because of misconduct, and no one wants to see that. But the overwhelming majority of police officers want to go to work and do a good job and get on with it. But you must have the support and the resources.
Yeah, Hamish, I mean, when you look at these statistics, if you put them into the context, the fact that the average Briton may experience 2 or 3 traumatic incidents in their entire lives, whereas police officers, while there is a lot of criticism about them spending too much time behind desks or policing tweets rather than the streets, they experience far more trauma, and they're expected just to take off the stab-proof vest, put away their hat in their locker at the end of the day and walk home and just sort of endure it. So it's sort of understandable that they might have a greater sort of emotional regulation pressure than other employers. But you made that comparison with the armed forces, didn't you? The armed services having issues as well. Actually, people in the military have, on average, better mental health if they're serving than the wider public. So what are those pressures that police officers are taking home? Is it a sense of frustration that they're not able to do the job that they want to?
Well, Charlie, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say frustration, you can't do your job properly. But a point which came out, I think, with the Police Federation is that people are concerned about saying, look, I can't cope, or I've got too much work, because it might affect their career prospects. So with that, it is essential there is good supervision where people can see the warning signs. And most importantly, the subordinates can go to the boss and have confidence to speak to them, knowing there won't be a nasty feedback on this. And with that, the police are spending more time on HR and other resources. And with that, they can take it forward. But it is absolutely essential. It's so important. The police are seen to have that support. And with that, and I think trying to put the cart before the horse in certain ways, is that when there is a selection process, that people go into the job with their eyes open and what it's likely to entail. And they may come across some very nasty things, but that is part of the job and they have to come to terms with it. But if there is a tragedy to go to, if there is something nasty to deal with, to have that confidence for people to speak to them later and give them that support. It's a very big issue, and the police and the supervisors and the HR have to work together to get on top of this.
On that issue of stigma, I spoke to a police officer, not in the Met, who claimed that he wanted to apply for a job in a very sort of troubling area, a very difficult area, and to get that job, you had to have a sort of clean record of mental health. I'm sure that's not what they called it, but something along those lines. He, in a difficult job that he'd been in before, had had therapy, and because he'd had that therapy, he claims that he wasn't eligible for this job. He wasn't able to apply for this job that he wanted to do, was well qualified for, because he'd had the therapy. If it just bottled up his mental health issues, then he would have been able to get the job. That seems like a bizarre situation. Is that really what's going on?
Well, I suspect, Olivia, this happens in other jobs as well. And quite simply, it's accountability. The what if it goes wrong? Perhaps someone loses it. Perhaps someone loses it carrying a gun. And then there's this big investigation. And they're saying, well, look, he had this background, or she had this background. Why on earth did you let them drive a fast car? Why did you give them a gun? Why did you do this, that, the other? Because it was screamingly obvious they were inappropriate in the first place. So I think there's a little bit of back covering here. But at the same time, there has to be a flexibility with those making that assessment. And I suspect it's pretty rigid, and they'll be more concerned about their own careers and not pushing the right people forward.
OK, retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown, thank you so much for your time this morning. And Olivia, I've got to say this, I think the main problem that's affecting police officers, beyond the massive drag, putting them left, right and Charlie into protest one day, and then extreme trauma the other day, I think there's a lack of a sense of purpose with the police. They're being expected to do so many things. And I'm sure quite a lot of them don't agree with this horrible trend we're seeing at the moment of police officers in people's front rooms arresting them for something they've put on social media. That has got to be seriously debilitating to that sense of connection.
It must be so frustrating as well for morale when you're so busy all the time with so much to do, and then you're sent away to do these sort of activities which surely a lot of police officers, assuming they have the same views as the rest of the public, think are completely mad use of time and resources. Must be really morale draining, I'd have thought.
The most recent arrest video I saw, the police officer, I'm just trying to be reasonable, I'm not in charge, I've been sent here. But I think it would really get me down if in my job, the sense of purpose that I'd signed up to protect the public, policing by consent, and instead of engaging with some seriously damaging statistics that we have in this country on theft, on serious violence, and that instead they were meant to go and do things like that. And also, I mean, obviously we have a right to protest in this country, but it also must be pretty depressing, constantly going to these... and being screamed at by people who hate you. I mean, yeah, that's got to have an effect.
Well, absolutely. A Home Office spokeswoman said that the department expressed the utmost gratitude to police officers who show great bravery and sacrifice throughout their service. The spokeswoman added that the Home Office remained committed to supporting their mental and physical well-being, and the department was working closely with police leaders and staff associations to support this. You can read the full story at gbnews.com.
Well, still to come on Saturday Morning Live.
Also heading to Labour.
The trailers of truth have taken the farming conversation to the heart of communities. Now they're on their way to take it to the heart of the Labour conference.
Also heading to Labour conference is the Trailers of Truth protest. Jack Carston will bring us his report on how farmers plan to make their voices heard.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for the top European holiday destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Storm Gabrielle could bring some unsettled weather across parts of Spain and Portugal, turning wet and windy here. We could see some blustery showers move through across Madeira, eventually pushing south into parts of Tenerife. But where we see the storm, it's likely we'll see some wet weather, possibly even some strong winds, particularly around exposed coasts. Across much of northern Europe, mostly settled, but it's likely we'll see continuous showers across the Adriatic coastlines and at times across parts of Greece. A mix of showers and sunshine into next week, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Well, you could enjoy unlimited Great British Getaways with our latest giveaway. Your chance to win a brand new full-berth motorhome worth over £74,000 plus a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like.
It's our biggest prize to date, and here's Hayley Sparks with all the details you need to be in it to win it.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof light, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Thanks, Hayley, and potentially more problems ahead for the Prime Minister, because since the start of September, 3 tractor trailers have been touring the UK, raising awareness of issues facing the farming community.
Yes, the Trailers of Truth, with the idea of campaigners, farmers to action, with their final destination, the Labour Party conference in Liverpool tomorrow.
Our national reporter Jack Carson went to meet them on the final leg of their journey.
This is the Trailer of Truth. It's one of 3 that have toured the country over the last month as part of a campaign by the group Farmers to Action. Now they've reached their final stop in Wales before heading to the Labour conference for a mass rally on Sunday. Farmers to Action say the trailer shines a light on issues like inheritance tax reform, rural living standards and concerns over food security. Along the way, they've been inviting the public to join in and share their messages they want taken to the government. Hugh Roberts has been part of the team organising the trailer tour across Wales.
Agriculture's on its knees at the moment, especially with this inheritance tax that's coming in. It's going to kill more and more and more family farms. The MPs and that, they don't seem to be bothered. For what reason, I don't know. I don't know where they think their food's going to come from at the end of the day, because that's what we produce, food, for the whole nation.
The Roberts family have been farming in Wrexham for 100 years, and he worries he'll be the last generation.
It frightens the death out of me. My 5-year-old said to me the other night, going to bed, "Dad, will I be able to farm after you?" I couldn't answer him, and that breaks my heart. You know, it's just an awful thing to think of.
The government says its commitment to farmers remains steadfast, but believes inheritance tax reforms are vital and says changes will only affect 500 farms a year. But others, including the National Farmers Union, estimate it could be up to 70,000 farms. Signing the trailer at this livestock market in Ruthin, Simon Taylor has been farming for almost half a century and planned to pass everything on to his sons.
Where's the next meal coming from? If farmers will just pack in, you know, they'll get to a certain age and they'll just say, that's it, our children can't farm, we're no longer prepared to put up with it. Who is going to farm? Where's the food on your table coming from?
On their tour of the UK, the Trailers of Truth have taken the farming conversation to the heart of communities. Now they're on their way to take it to the heart of the Labour conference. Jack Carson, GB News.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jack. A really tricky Labour Party conference coming up starting tomorrow. And you've all been writing in with your views. Thank you very much. Alan says the Conservatives won't leave the ECHR. They will say anything to get elected, then do nothing. I was a Tory voter before the last election. Never will I fall for theirs or Labour's ploys again. Looks like a new Reform voter there.
Yes, well, I haven't polled him directly, but I think we can guarantee
Reading between the lines.
Probably moving in that direction. It could be a surprise Lib Dem. Who could say? Caroline has said that digital ID. Here's a thought. Instead of us making us have one of those, why not make the incoming migrants, legal and illegal, have a digital ID? Well, of course, that's what they are doing as well. It's meant to be for everyone. But, yeah, lots of criticism on that point as well.
Absolutely. Well, lots more to come on Saturday Morning Live, including the latest stories from Labour conference before it gets underway.
And continued fallout from the government's digital ID announcement. Don't go anywhere. See you in a bit.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's a bit of a damp start out there for many of us this morning. We've got a band of rain spreading its way eastwards and rather breezy across the north as well, all thanks to this weather front out towards the west of the country. The further east you are, still under the influence of high pressure situated over Scandinavia, but that weather front's going to continue to push its way eastwards as we go through the rest of Saturday. It's going to bring some quite heavy rain to eastern parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, perhaps up to 50 millimetres in places, and perhaps across parts of Northern Ireland in only a couple of hours. So there could be some localised flooding here. Further south, still remaining rather cloudy, the best of any sunshine across the very far southeast, and feeling pleasantly warm in that sunshine with highs of 18 or 19 degrees, around about average for the time of year. As we then go into Saturday evening, we'll continue to see outbreaks of perhaps quite heavy rainfall across western parts of Scotland. The further east you are, staying a little bit drier for a time during Saturday evening. That rain eventually clears eastwards across the eastern parts of Northern Ireland, but plenty of blustery showers feeding in behind. Then that rain affecting parts of northern England, wet parts of Wales, southwest England too. And the further south and the further east you are, generally staying a little bit drier into the evening, but the cloud increasing quite quickly here as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning. That band of rain continues to then spread its way southeastwards across southern parts of the UK, swirling around an area of low pressure across the north, so still remaining really quite breezy and quite damp here. But across the southwest, where it will turn a little bit drier, we could see some patchy frost in places, perhaps the odd patch of mist and fog as well to start on Sunday morning. So a little bit of a chillier start across parts of Wales and southwest England. Across the southeast, a cloudier start as that band of rain eventually clears southeastwards as we go through the afternoon, and also clears northwards from parts of Scotland too. Plenty of showers feeding in from the northwest, but generally a lot more sunshine on offer for many of us, and feeling pleasant in that sunshine with highs of 20 degrees in the south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Saturday, the 27th of September. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Saturday Morning Live.
It's a reflection of the vibrant talent in the Labour Party, that we've got loads of people who would make great leaders.
Yes, it's the eve of the Labour Party conference and members are arriving in Liverpool this morning. But will events be overshadowed by speculation on Sir Keir Starmer's premiership? Josh McAllister spoke about the levels of talent in the Labour Party earlier.
This government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work.
As backlash continuing to grow over the government's digital ID plans, they were announced yesterday, but is Labour at odds over the issue? We'll be taking a look at the potential divide in the party.
Yes, and fresh reports this morning that Chancellor Rachel Reeves thinks Britain needs to sign an ambitious migration deal with the EU that allows young Europeans to live and work in Britain. Are we about to see free movement again?
And are we also facing a fresh crisis with so-called Mickey Mouse degrees? New data shows that some graduates are earning less than the minimum wage. University leavers with degrees in the fine arts are struggling the most. We'll discuss the state of our education system.
Years, Scotland's most dismal town has been presented with the Carbuncle Award. 2025's plaque was presented to Port Glasgow, once the epicentre of Scottish shipbuilding.
And Port Glasgow was named Scotland's most dismal town, but then rejected the accolade, choosing instead to celebrate their surroundings and work towards revitalising the High Street. Tony Maguire has the story.
And breaking news in the last few moments, West Ham manager Graham Potter has been sacked after a dismal start to the season.
The biggest stories, boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next hour. I'm Olivia Utley.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here.
Well, a really interesting story, I think, that we're going to be talking about later, about people who are leaving university and getting worse jobs than they would have done had they not gone to university at all. Really worrying, given that students are getting themselves into thousands and thousands of pounds worth of debt.
Yeah, it's a seriously crippling situation. And for those of us who studied philosophy at university, didn't necessarily expect to end up here. Very glad to be doing so. What did your degree set you up for?
English at the University of York, which actually has an honourable mention in that piece about these university degrees for having low earning potential. So sorry to other graduates from the university.
Yeah, if you are a student, please do get in touch. gbnews.com/yoursay. Are you concerned that you're wasting your time? We'll try and offer some support as well. I'm sure that they'll.
Financial support.
Yeah, we can't do that. We really can't do that. No, not us. Graduates in the humanities. But do get in touch. And if you haven't gone to university, if you're a young person who's instead sought to get an apprenticeship or get straight into work, we want to hear from you. Do you think you've made the right choice? Listening to that news, I'm sure you do.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not expecting my son to go to university, and it's such a change in just one generation.
You're planning that already?
Already? Sorry, Wilfred, you can't go. You can't go.
Don't be astonished listening to that at home this morning.
But before we do anything else, Sophia Hill has all your news headlines. Olivia, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your top stories. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to take the fight to reform UK, who he's described as a, quote, enemy of the country. That's as he travels to Labour's annual party conference, which opens in Liverpool tomorrow, against a backdrop of pressure and protest. The Grassroots Trailer of Truth campaign, backed by farmers, veterans and rural families, will stage a mass rally outside, warning of broken promises to Britain's countryside. Inside, MPs are said to be frustrated with Andy Burnham's leadership manoeuvrings, with party chairwoman Anna Turley urging unity behind Sir Keir Starmer. GB News can reveal that 2 migrants have died in the English Channel overnight after a small boat got into trouble off the French coast. Despite being rescued and taken ashore, paramedics were unable to revive the women. Several others were hospitalised with hypothermia, and it comes as more than 200 migrants have already attempted to cross this morning, the first since over 1,000 arrived last weekend. With calmer weather, Border Force is braced for what maritime sources described as potential red days ahead, with up to 2,000 more arrivals expected over the coming days. A petition opposing digital ID cards has topped 1.5 million signatures. It follows Sir Keir Starmer's plans for a new ID system by 2029, initially to prove the right to work in the UK. Ministers say it will help curb illegal immigration, but campaigners warn that it's a step towards mass surveillance. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has branded the proposal, quote, an anti-British card, while Downing Street insists that it could modernise public services. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticised Western allies for recognising a Palestinian state. Speaking at the UN General Assembly, he said that leaders in countries including France, Britain, Australia and Canada had sent what he called the message that, quote, murdering Jews pays off. It comes as Israel faced mounting international pressure over its war in Gaza, now nearing its second year. Elon Musk and the Duke of York have both been named in newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. Documents from the US House Oversight Committee list Elon Musk as a potential visitor to Epstein's private island in December 2014, 6 years after the financier became a registered sex offender. They also show that Prince Andrew was a passenger on Epstein's private jet. Musk has previously said he declined Epstein's invitation, while the Duke has consistently denied any wrongdoing. A GB News investigation has revealed that thousands of police officers are off duty due to mental health issues. FOI requests show that at least 2,740 officers across the UK are on psychological leave, including more than 400 in the Met alone. The Police Federation says that the real number could be higher, warning many officers don't report their problems for fear of harming their careers. Some have been absent now for more than 4 years. And hundreds of thousands more children will soon be offered a free breakfast at school under a new government plan. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has announced that 2,000 primary schools across England will join the scheme, backed by £80 million. Ministers say that these meals could save families up to £450 a year in childcare costs. The announcement comes as Labour prepares to open its annual party conference in Liverpool this weekend. And some breaking sports news now. Graham Potter has been sacked as West Ham's manager. Former Chelsea boss Potter was relieved of his duties just 2 days out from West Ham's match against Everton. The Hammers faithful turned on Potter during last weekend's defeat to Crystal Palace. Now, in a statement from the club, they said that the results and the performances over the course of the second half of last season and the start of the 2025-26 season have not matched expectations, and the board of directors believe that this change is necessary. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour, but now it's back to Charlie and Olivia. Well, thank you very much, Sophia, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley.
Well, Labour members, they're arriving in Liverpool this morning ahead of their annual conference, which begins tomorrow.
But events could be overshadowed by growing speculation on Sir Keir Starmer's premiership, with reports suggesting Sir Sadiq Khan may have his sights on number 10, as well as the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham.
And a new poll released yesterday suggested that Nigel Farage is on course to become Prime Minister.
Here's what the Minister for Children and Families, Josh McAllister, had to say about those leadership rumours this morning.
It's a reflection of the vibrant talent in the Labour Party that we've got loads of people who would make great leaders. And look, the other thing I'd say to you, you spend a lot of time with politicians. You'll know a lot of them who are very keen to be in positions where they can make the biggest difference possible. And that's the most favourable take that I've got on it. I know Andy Burnham myself. I've worked with him on youth justice issues in Greater Manchester. He's doing a really good job there. But look, this conference is all about the plan we've got as a team to improve this country.
Is it a dress down Saturday for Josh McAllister there? No tie, a Minister of the State? Oh, it's a very interesting open net casual look at the start of conference. Oh, there we go. Well, joining us now to talk about the politics, not necessarily the sartorial choices of our ministers, is the reporter at Politics Home, Tom Scottson. Tom, great to have you on this morning. Let's start with what we were just discussing there, and that is these vying leadership potential candidates, these challenges to Sir Keir Starmer. How much truth do you think is there in this idea that maybe Sir Sadiq Khan is also in the running?
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, it's been a funny one because just before Labour conference, I've been texting Labour MPs trying to find out the vibe and the feeling for conference, and many have started calling it the Andy Burnham show, just to really reflect that it's going to show in the conference anyway the divisions between Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, and Keir Starmer. And it's a really difficult one for Labour because last year it was dominated by scandal and Lord Alley and the donations. And this year it's really splits and divisions between Starmer, his backbenchers, and many potential leadership hopes. As you said with Sadiq Khan, I don't think he's someone that would be in the running. I don't think he would have the popular support among backbenchers and perhaps the public from polling. But with someone like Andy Burnham, and this is my neck of the woods in Greater Manchester, there is a feeling, particularly with Tory voters there, that they might think, I don't like Labour, I don't normally vote for them at election, but I do like Andy. He's a people's man, he's King of the North. He's really built up a very good PR campaign up there. So I think that is going to be the main dominating factor. There'll be a few subtle divides, maybe at the fringes, but the main thing that's going to play out the whole 3 to 4 days is going to be Burnham versus Starmer.
The issues which are concerning Britain, sort of poll after poll, are migration, the NHS and welfare. Now, as we know, the Labour government is struggling a bit to manage to do anything about the immigration problem. The NHS seems to be a sort of insurmountable problem with new junior doctor strikes threatened. So the third issue is welfare. Obviously, Keir Starmer tried to do something about that in the last parliamentary term. He failed. Do you think now he's saying that the problem is unsustainable? Is he going to do anything to address that? And if he does, could that potentially save his premiership, or is it too late?
Well, there was an interesting interview with Darren Jones in the Telegraph. So he's the Chief Secretary now to Keir Starmer, having moved from the Treasury. And he said in no uncertain terms that the benefit bill anyway was unsustainable. It had to be brought down. But the problem with this, and I think the Tories found out, is that it's very difficult to put a specific number on this and where they're going to cut. Are they going to cut the state pension? They found it very difficult to cut the winter fuel allowance, for example, and that was only a meagre £2 billion. So I think that a benefit crackdown and potentially reducing the bill and showing, some sort of fiscal responsibility could save face for Labour. But again, a year in their premiership and they had the biggest rebellion, more than 100 MPs willing to defeat the government on a prime piece of legislation. I think now that after a year of losing that much political capital, it's going to be very difficult, and I think Labour MPs concede this, to turn this ship around.
And Tom, we've also seen some more fighting talk from the Prime Minister about reform, describing them as an enemy, and then also saying that he wants to conduct a patriotic national renewal. 1 year in, Labour, rewrapping itself in the Union flag. Do you think that's a good strategy for Labour to take on, to go after reform on the patriotic front? Is that potentially trying to fight Nigel Farage's party in one of their strongest suits?
I mean, I speak to many Labour MPs who can kind of understand this, and they look at the polling and they see that double the amount of voters from the last election who were going to reform also supported the Lib Dems and Greens. So 12% of voters have moved across since, and they're trying to win back that segment of the electorate. The problem is, and I think with so many of the problems being baked in now, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to win those voters back. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily vote for the Labour Party because they are the most patriotic party. They vote for the Labour Party because of workers' rights, stronger minimum wage, better protections. And I think that's going to be very difficult to persuade the public, especially when you've got a full fat version of that in reform, whether Labour can provide anything of an alternative.
Well, thank you very much, Tom Scottson, the political reporter at Politics Home. And I think Tom touched on a really interesting issue there. It does feel as though Labour is just fighting on so many fronts at the moment. They want to bring back voters who've gone over to the Greens or the Lib Dems, and at the same time, they're trying to woo reform voters, trying to be a lot of things to a lot of people.
I think a lot of people just want some change. They just want some change. Regardless of who's wearing what rosette, they're not really happy about the state of the country. And, well, perhaps they don't want this change, though, because backlash against the government's plans to introduce digital ID, that's continuing to grow. Petition against the measure has now topped 1.5 million signatures.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer officially unveiled the plan for the Brit card in a speech yesterday. But there are suggestions that the Prime Minister and Chief Secretary Darren Jones may be at odds over the issue.
Well, aside from the politics, what impact will this increased reliance on digital technologies have on the most vulnerable? Are we potentially disenfranchising the elderly? Well, joining us now is someone who has written on that issue specifically. It's Eleanor Mills. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Eleanor. What are the risks, then, that digital ID might bring to disenfranchising elderly people in Britain?
Well, I think the elderly are already struggling with the mass move online to digital technology. So I wrote in the Telegraph on Thursday for Friday about my aunt who lives near Cheltenham, and for the whole of her life has gone into Cheltenham every week to do some shopping, meet a friend. And she now won't go because she can't make the apps work on her phone for parking, and which I think is really sad. There's nowhere now that she can pay just with cash, and she can't, you know, she's 86, she can't make her smartphone work. And there are millions of others like that. There are over 2 million 65 pluses who are not online at all, and millions more who don't have smartphones, which is where this digital ID is going to sit. And so I think that we're at real risk of disenfranchising a huge chunk of the British population, people who have paid their taxes, you know, really done their best for the country, who don't want to now take up a digital ID and can't make their phones work for whatever reason. And I think that that's actually a real problem. And the fact that nearly 1.5 million people have signed this petition in 24 hours shows that I'm not the only one who sees that this one is a problem. I actually wrote this column in reaction to Ryanair saying that they were going to ditch paper boarding passes, but I've seen it with so many older people having real problems making these kind of apps work, and you know, digital tickets on your phone. Or it's fine if you're kind of younger and you've grown up as a digital native, but if you're really not on top of this technology, then suddenly lots of things which we all take for granted become almost impossible, like parking in your local town.
Well, I was very moved by your piece, actually, Eleanor, and I think it's a really important issue you raised about elderly people not being able to access these services, and boarding passes is a really good example, parking too. But on the specific issue of digital ID, at the moment the government is saying that it would only apply to workers. You'd need one to get a job, but pensioners wouldn't be affected. Doesn't that not negate your argument a little bit on this digital ID issue specifically?
No, I completely disagree. Darren Jones has said specifically that this would be the bedrock of the modern state. And lots of elderly people are going to need digital IDs to access their pensions, because it's going to become the basis of how we get benefits and things like that in this country. So I think to say that it's just for migrants is disingenuous in the most generous interpretation.
And Eleanor, we've also had Sally writing into us, gbnews.com/your say, saying, Labour says this digital ID is going to be free of charge, but my husband will need a phone to put it on. Will that also be free of charge? That does point to something here, that the government is anticipating a total layer of technological availability across the country for this to work, aren't they? Are they going to have to roll out more skills and training, or even free phones to compensate for this bedrock of the digital state?
Well, I think this is just not going to work. If you actually look at what's going on in the demographics of the UK, we're getting more and more older people all the time. By 2030, over half the workforce is 60 kind of plus, and we're getting more and more kind of nonagenarians and centurions, and lots of them are really voting with their feet and saying that they don't want to have to carry a smartphone if they don't want one, and they certainly don't want a digital ID card. I also think that this taps into a much bigger kind of sensibility amongst the British people, which is that we've never had to carry an ID card in this country. And as I think a lot of people are coming out saying, I think this is going to really backfire for Keir Starmer. I think this is one of those occasions where, you know, the phrase about the people of England who have not spoken yet. I think that they're really going to not like the idea of a digital ID card, and already many really, you know, upstanding, good citizens of this country are very cross about the fact that they now need a smartphone to park in their local town. I mean, it's really sad what's happened to my aunt. You know, she's 86, she still lives on her own, she mucks out her horses every morning, all that kind of thing, and she can't drive into Cheltenham because she now can't park. That just strikes me as incredibly unfair, and I think a rolling out of this digital ID for everybody as the bedrock of the state is just going to make this worse.
Well, I think that's a really interesting and a really important point you raise about elderly people. Darren Jones says this will be the bedrock of the state. At the moment, Keir Starmer is saying it's just about work. I mean, you could argue, couldn't you, that we're all sharing our data all the time with all sorts of tech companies, that our computers are listening to us speak, and we still have to give our national insurance card when we apply for a job. I mean, what's the difference here? We've moved on a lot technologically from where we were 20 years ago when these arguments were first being made. Is it really such a big leap to imagine that people who are sharing their data all the time could have just a pass which would act essentially in the same way as a national insurance card?
But I think that that's to misunderstand the argument of who we're talking about. You know, yes, lots of us. I mean, I'm 54. I'm very happy using apps. I have an electric car, so I can't go anywhere without having to kind of log into a million apps to charge it up. But I think if you look at the next generation up, you know, my auntie's 86, and there are a lot of people now who are living to 100. So it's not a small number of people. We're probably talking, you know, 4 or 5 million people in this country who are going to be disenfranchised by the expectation that everybody has a smartphone. And that's not even beginning to think about the people who are in poverty, who can't afford a smartphone, who are younger. I think that this runs the risk of disenfranchising both the elderly and vulnerable who are poor and can't afford the technology.
Okay,
and
journalist Eleanor Mills, thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Still to come here on Saturday Morning Live, are we facing a fresh crisis with so-called Mickey Mouse degrees? New data shows some graduates are earning less than the minimum wage. University leavers with degrees in the arts are struggling the most.
Yes, we'll discuss the state of our education system. But next, Rachel Reeves is calling for a new migration deal with the EU to allow young Europeans to come and work in Britain. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday Five.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and now we're going to look through some of the top stories of the day, and we're delighted to be joined by the former Labour advisor Matthew Larzer and the political commentator Duncan Barks. Good morning to you both. Right, let's start front page of the Times. Britain needs an ambitious EU youth migration deal. This is what Rachel Reeves is saying. A lot of people nervous that this is a return to the free migration in the EU that we just recently left from.
Freedom of movement by the back door.
Yeah.
Unpicking Brexit is what some people might say.
Oh, what are you saying, Duncan?
I'm interested in this because I think this could be a clever bit of politics, because the House of Commons Library is saying that if this was able to get off the ground, and it would be reciprocal, so it wouldn't just be people in the EU coming here, younger people to live and work, but also vice versa as well. So there's mutual benefit, it can be argued. But this piece suggests that it could be worth as much as £5 billion a year to the UK economy, at a time when Chancellor Rachel Reeves is scratching around for cash, is going to plug a black hole of around 30 billion quid. So this is being pitched, particularly how this has been reported by The Times, as this idea which is, well, maybe we should look at it because it could bring some money into the United Kingdom, otherwise they might have to put your taxes up. I think if you're a die-hard Brexiteer, you might go, hang on, there's something a bit whiffy about this. But I would also argue if you are a die-hard Brexiteer, anything that suggests changing from whatever was cobbled together as some kind of deal on us leaving the European Union would look a little bit dodgy to your eyes. It's whether or not it gets a great deal of traction. I certainly know people who are a heck of a lot younger than me who love the idea of this, the idea that actually it means they could go to a European country now and work and live there for a bit. So it'll be interesting to see if it gets traction.
It's a bit of a stick and a carrot approach, isn't it? It's basically Rachel Reeves saying, well, come on, if you let those people in, we might not have to raise your taxes so much. And I don't know, I wonder if even some die-hard Brexiteers, in the almost 10 years since Brexit, might have warmed a bit to an idea like this, because when Brexit happened, what we saw, and this was because it was planned out so badly, is that instead of sort of young people from the EU coming here to work for a few years, bring some money to the economy and then go home, instead of that, we had this wave of migrants from much, much poorer countries who brought their dependents with them 100%. And stayed in the country for a long time. So do you think public opinion on this issue has changed?
Absolutely. I think it's as soon as anybody has it put as clearly as that to them, yes, public opinion changes. I mean, those Remainers like me wish that in the campaign, back in the referendum in 2016, that argument had been made, because absolutely what you've got is work and go. So what basically Rachel Reeves wants to do is she wants to get the particularly in London, which has a labour shortage, and it's not quite the same in all parts of the country. She wants to get that injection of people doing service jobs. The pret-a-manger jobs is what, Londoners, the sandwich chain in London that used to be full of young Europeans serving you and isn't now, and to get that injection without having people who want to stay forever and bring dependents, because most young EU migrants did not bring dependents, and obviously under this scheme they would go home, because it would be just like people going to Australia, British kids, young people, kids, they show how old I am, going to Australia. And then she also gets the added benefit of it expands the economy, increases tax revenue. She doesn't have to raise quite as much to keep the OBR happy. So it's a win-win. And the politics of it are, yes, it might upset the really hardcore, but I think you're absolutely right. It's the really hardcore Brexiteers who it does. But what it does say is to all those nice sort of, liberal opinion in the country who you need to get back, who might have drifted to the Greens or the Lib Dems, to say, oh, look, here's Keir Starmer being a little bit sort of liberal, and he's not really Nigel Farage in disguise, which is what they would charge him as being. So there's a political win. So I think it's a good idea politically.
And Duncan, I think what Matthew's just pointed out there, the sort of access to young workers, that the country obviously needs to some degree, especially if they're not going to, stay forever. Even the most ardent
anti-mass migration critics will say that this country wasn't decimated by floods of French people and Italians coming over for a few years of work.
You've got to strip it out, haven't you? Most people I talk to are quite pragmatic about immigration. If people come to this country legally and they contribute to the system legally, most people just go, well, this care sector, the NHS, hospitality sectors, you need people from overseas countries to come here because we don't appear to have the homegrown staff who either want to do the jobs or the staff in those numbers. Then you've got to look at the other side, and most people I talk to, when they have an issue about migration, it's illegal migration, which we often talk about, and the fact that essentially people are illegally coming to this country for all the arguments that we've heard here on GB News regarding why a majority of people now think something needs to be done about it.
Oh, I'd really love to hear what our viewers have to think about this. Please do write in, whether you were a Brexiteer or a Remainer, what do you think about an EU migration scheme? Obviously, you mentioned there Nigel Farage. This, you think, is why Keir Starmer has brought this up. He doesn't want to just look like Nigel Farage light, but Nigel Farage light might be what people want, or in fact Nigel Farage heavy might be what people want. This poll shows that he's on track to win a general election.
Absolutely, and of course one of the reasons he's on track to win a general election is not just because obviously his vote is rising, but because the Labour vote is split between the four. So if you actually look at the polls, it's basically 50-50 between, if you stick all the parties of the left, the SNP, the Liberals and the Greens, together with Labour versus Reform and the Tories. So I think that the move on the EU gives him cover, but he also knows that he needs to do something, as you were saying, on illegal migration. So I think they're trying to get that balance right. And Labour MPs are like, yes, we need to do something about migration, but please don't annoy everybody in, everybody in kind of left opinion, because we need them to vote for us as well.
But it's a tightrope, isn't it?
Absolutely.
He's got to walk, Keir Starmer. And just picking up on Nigel Farage, I would say one of the main reasons that his party is riding high in the polls is he is one of the most effective communicators in UK politics. Kemi Badenoch, I'm sure, would kill for an answer what Farage has got. Ditto Ed Davey, ditto Keir Starmer. He is a very effective campaigner, as we've seen over the decades, and a very effective communicator. And he talks in the way that people down the pub talk, and he relates in that way, which is why, if you're fed up with the political status quo, you look at Nigel Farage and you go, this man is speaking my language. The challenge that Reform have now is we all know what's wrong with this country. They're going to have to set out solutions that work and are probably properly costed to make sure that those floating voters go, yeah, I'll give you a shot.
Well, Matthew was talking about appealing to the left a bit with this patch, this youth mobility scheme. Olivia invited reactions from gbnews.com/your say.
Perhaps not Guardian reading opinion.
Well, I would say, I mean, a lot of the people getting in touch are saying that this is an invitation of support from the chattering classes, that perhaps Labour has got a lot of that already. How many working class kids, they're saying, on your say, will be crossing over into the continent? And also, we should talk about the changing nature of migration on the continent as well. It might not necessarily be loads of French and Italian kids coming over to work in cafes. We've had 1 million Syrians arrive in Germany in 2015. It's a bit of a different game we're talking about now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very good point. The problem I would say to viewers is that, yes, you're right about it maybe being a chattering classes issue, but Labour hasn't got the chattering classes.
Yeah, they've lost those a bit.
It's lost those. I mean, we're not quite sure who the 20% who say they're going to vote Labour are.
Yeah.
But it has lost some of that kind of chattering class opinion. I think it would need to be very carefully handled. It would need to be limited numbers. But half of British kids go to university, fancy a gap year, might want to do 6 months. Working in a European country, etc. It could work. It's all about the detail. Labour needs to be seen to be tough on illegal migration and actually on all the family independence issues, which we heard about this week as well.
Olivia, you can't really do this while also still having the small boats crisis at the moment. To have more open opportunities
and I think the
of
word
migration.
Carefully handled is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because Boris Johnson came up with something similar, and that was not carefully handled at all.
And the other thing Keir Starmer has to do in order to try and hold on to the red wall and stop bleeding support to Reform is to make people who voted for Brexit still understand he gets why they voted for Brexit. So again, it comes back to the point I made earlier about walking this tightrope. And I suspect at some point he's going to come off.
OK, Matthew, Duncan, thank you very much for your time this morning. And there's lots more to come here on Saturday Morning Live. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Charlie, thank you. The top stories at 11:30. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to take the fight to Reform UK, the party he's described as a, quote, enemy of the country. That's as he travels to Labour's annual party conference, which opens in Liverpool tomorrow. GB News can reveal that 2 migrants have died in the English Channel overnight after a small boat got into trouble off the French coast. Elon Musk and the Duke of York have both been named in newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. Documents from the US House Oversight Committee list Musk as a potential visitor to Epstein's private island in December 2014. A GB News investigation has revealed that thousands of police officers are off duty due to their mental health. FOI requests show that at least 2,740 officers across the UK are on psychological leave, with more than 400 of those in the Met alone. And some breaking news in the last hour. Graham Potter has been sacked as West Ham's manager. The former Chelsea boss was relieved of his duties just 2 days out from West Ham's match against Everton. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, thank you very much, Sophia. And still to come.
For 25 years, Scotland's most dismal town has been presented with the Carbuncle Award. 2025's Pluck was presented to Port Glasgow, once the epicentre of Scottish shipbuilding.
Well, I love this story. Port Glasgow absolutely turning things around there.
Yes, and also coming up on Saturday Morning Live, we'll be talking about so-called Mickey Mouse degrees. Is our education system in tatters? And are our kids being sent to unis that are not worth the £9,000 a year? All that coming up after the break.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's a bit of a damp start out there for many of us this morning. We've got a band of rain spreading its way eastwards and rather breezy across the north as well, all thanks to this weather front out towards the west of the country. The further east you are, still under the influence of high pressure situated over Scandinavia, but that weather front's going to continue to push its way eastwards as we go through the rest of Saturday. It's going to bring some quite heavy rain to eastern parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, perhaps up to 50 millimetres in places, and perhaps across parts of Northern Ireland in only a couple of hours. So there could be some localised flooding here. Further south, still remaining rather cloudy, the best of any sunshine across the very far southeast, and feeling pleasantly warm in that sunshine with highs of 18 or 19 degrees, around about average for the time of year. As we then go into Saturday evening, we'll continue to see outbreaks of perhaps quite heavy rainfall across western parts of Scotland. The further east you are, staying a little bit drier for a time during Saturday evening. That rain eventually clears eastwards across the eastern parts of Northern Ireland, but plenty of blustery showers feeding in behind. Then that rain affecting parts of northern England, wet parts of Wales, southwest England too. And the further south and the further east you are, generally staying a little bit drier into the evening, but the cloud increasing quite quickly here as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning. That band of rain continues to then spread its way southeastwards across southern parts of the UK, swirling around an area of low pressure across the north, so still remaining really quite breezy and quite damp here. But across the southwest, where it will turn a little bit drier, we could see some patchy frost in places, perhaps the odd patch of mist and fog as well to start on Sunday morning. So a little bit of a chillier start across parts of Wales and southwest England. Across the southeast, a cloudier start as that band of rain eventually clears southeastwards as we go through the afternoon, and also clears northwards from parts of Scotland too. Plenty of showers feeding in from the northwest, but generally a lot more sunshine on offer for many of us, and feeling pleasant in that sunshine with highs of 20 degrees in the south.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Thursday morning at Live, new data has revealed a fresh crisis for graduates leaving university.
Yes, leavers from 15 of Britain's more than 160 universities are earning, on average, less than the minimum wage a year after graduating.
The analysis also unveils a particular crisis for students taking arts degrees like media studies and the performing arts.
So what's gone so badly wrong in the education system to lead to these outcomes, and what needs to change? Well, to answer those questions, it's the head teacher at LVS in Ascot, Christine Cunliffe. Christine, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Troubling news for your students planning for tertiary education and beyond.
Yes, I mean, the world is changing and the world of education is changing as well. And I think we have to make sure that our children are making the right choices for the future. I mean, I'm a music graduate myself. So, you know, it has always been tough in the performing arts. It depends what route you decide to go down afterwards. We shouldn't discourage children from going to university, but it's finding the right courses and giving them the right careers advice so that they've got the informed decisions for the future.
I mean, you say we shouldn't discourage students from going to university, but isn't the issue that there are just far too many graduates? The market is flooded with graduates and there aren't enough graduate jobs for them all. Shouldn't we be discouraging them from going to university and going down different paths, doing apprenticeships, for example?
It's twofold. So apprenticeships now, there's some fantastic apprenticeships out there. It hasn't always been the case. And it's taken many decades to kind of shake off what an apprenticeship actually means. But there's some stunning opportunities out there for young people. And I do believe that maybe too many children have gone to university in the past, but I don't think schools or children are to blame. You know, I think once when the fees went up to, you know, over 9,000, suddenly students became the customer, and universities took them and sold them degrees at. Was it responsible? But, you know, I think we need to follow other countries, for example, that are doing much more vocational studies, you know, alongside plumbing or medicine. You know, I'm talking nursing and things like that. You know, we need to sort of encourage now universities and schools to make sure that children have the right skills for the future.
And Christine, you say, you know, it's about choosing the right course, but isn't it really more about choosing the right institution? At least that's what it seems to me, because if you study, say, Anglo-Saxon, Celtic and Norse at the University of Oxford, which I'm sure is a fascinating course, you're probably going to end up with better earnings 5 years later than someone who studies a vocational degree like business management at a less prestigious university. So what matters more is sort of the quality of the institution, less the course.
I think it does. But I mean, the course you just mentioned at Oxford, I mean, I'm not sure how many vocations would want that unless it's academic. Whereas business management, you know, from a good university is a good degree to get. And I think there'll be more choice for students now as well, because, you know, universities are finding it difficult and it is very much a buyer's market. I would be cautious now if I had children of that age myself, making sure that they didn't go because they felt they had to go or because parents thought they had to go as well. The apprenticeship landscape is brilliant, and I know some fantastic courses out there for people.
I do think it's a really interesting change in just one generation. I think most people our age, I'm in my early 30s, were persuaded to go to university. And I think my children's generation probably won't be. Really, really big change there. On the question of courses, are there any courses that when your students say they're planning to study them at university, does your heart sort of sink a little bit? And are there some courses where you think, oh, fantastic, that student has a bright future? And what are they?
I think you do that, but I definitely steer the children in the right direction. I did it with my own children. I said, whatever you do, make sure there's a job at the end of it. So, you know, for example, if you do economics or business management or something like that, there are amazing things at the end of that. And you can also diversify as well into other areas. So all I'd say is make sure that you're actually training, vocational training on a job in a degree that will give you a career when you come out the other end. But saying that, we need more teachers. Come on, guys, go get those degrees and come into teaching, because we've got a real recruitment shortage out here, and we need good people in the profession, which is a good profession. Paid very, very, very well now.
Well, Christine, I have to say, I mean, in the data that this story was released to in the Times, they did find that those who studied teaching did have some of the worst economic outcomes after 5 years. But say the business students and economics students had some of the best. So definitely a lot of truth to what you're saying at the start. I know there's a big drive to get more people to sign up to teaching, and there's all sorts of financial incentives for that as well. But I mean, Olivia and I, we studied humanities degrees with no jobs attached to them, which is why we ended up in this fabulous line of work. But it's, I mean, it is tricky out there. And we're just talking about what the next generation are thinking. They're looking at non-traditional paths and future professions, aren't they? A lot of people now growing up thinking they want to become like TikTok famous or take an alternative approach to work and are shunning the idea of further education.
I mean, let's not take away that any degree that you do, it's not just about the subject that you study, it's about the skills that you acquire. And we've got to look at the skills to acquire for the future. So, for example, you're both journalists now. So somewhere along the line, your characters, your passion for what you do was being nurtured in that way, having done humanities degrees. So let's not throw it all out with the bathwater, but look at developing the 21st century skills so that if you are doing further education, you also adapt and change yourself, build yourself up into the employee that every employer wants.
Well, thank you very much, Christine Cunliffe, there, the head teacher at LVS Ascot. And I think there's some really interesting issues that she raises there about building up the skills. And also, I suppose the social life is so important. I wonder how many students are just going to university for the social life. Can there be something like that replicated in the apprenticeship sector, for example, that would persuade people to go and do an apprenticeship instead?
No, I'm not speaking for myself here, but I think most people nowadays, unfortunately, go to university perhaps just because they know it's like a 3-year break from adult life. You know, you can have a good time with your friends, go out, experience a new city, you're freed and you're an adult for the first time. And that's very exciting. But we do need to think about the cost of that and also what potential futures it might open or indeed close. I do think we're going to see more of a push towards vocational opportunities, long overdue, and especially if it's a skills world that we're moving into.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is a bit of a danger of 18-year-olds just sort of seeing university as a way to avoid making any decisions about their future for the next 3 years. But then 3 years in, they're in a lot of debt and it's much more difficult.
Well, still to come on Saturday Morning Live.
For 25 years, Scotland's most dismal town has been presented with the Carbuncle Award. 2025's plaque was presented to Port Glasgow, once the epicentre of Scottish shipbuilding.
Well, Port Glasgow was named Scotland's most dismal town, but they rejected the accolade, choosing instead to celebrate their surroundings and work towards revitalising the high street. Tony Maguire has got a special report for us, but first, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Gabrielle could bring some unsettled weather across parts of Spain and Portugal, turning wet and windy here. We could see some blustery showers move through across Madeira, eventually pushing south into parts of Tenerife. But where we see the storm, it's likely we'll see some wet weather, possibly even some strong winds, particularly around exposed coasts. Across much of northern Europe, mostly settled, but it's likely we'll see continuous showers across the Adriatic coastlines and at times across parts of Greece. A mix of showers and sunshine into next week, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Are you panicking when you're in Northern Ireland when you go out and about because there is a lack of chargers?
Well, listen, I'm really pro-EV, and we've had the odd issue with broken EV chargers, particularly yesterday at both Ballymoney at Beasties and also over at Dunsily. We had issues with chargers, but the charging infrastructure is used very rarely. My mother, for example, she has overnight charging at home. She's never used a public charger, and she's had the car for 3 years.
Yeah. So
if you've got that domestic overnight charging, it's cheap. It's very affordable if you buy a 2-year-old EV, and they are absolutely the way forward. I'm a Yorkshireman. I don't like parting with my brass. I want to get
cheap motoring, and for less than a penny a mile and a car for less than 20 grand to start with, you know, it sounds a bit blasé saying £20,000, but relative to what these cars are new, they're incredible value for money. And we're seeing mass adoption. There's a garage in Richmond in North Yorkshire that sells more than half of the cars they sell are electric vehicles, and that's in a rural Dales area. So it's about having that domestic overnight charging and not having to rely on public infrastructure. Danny, where it doesn't convince me at all is, right, so I'm living in London and I want to go to see Manchester United, and I might get there, but am I going to get back down again? Or worse still, if I'm not on full charge, I'm going to miss kickoff because I'm going to have to rely on a public charger somewhere. So is that the sort of anxiety? I mean, you were talking about range anxiety there, Ellie. Is that the sort of anxiety people have? I mean, I genuinely have that. Despite what we were hearing there from Fraser.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and an award singling out Scotland's most dismal town is to be scrapped after 25 years because the latest winner said no thank you.
Yes, the Carbuncle Award, or the Pluke on the Plinth, as it's known up north, should have been awarded to Port Glasgow in Inverclyde, but the town rejected it.
Well, Tony Maguire has the story.
For 25 years, Scotland's most dismal town has been presented with the Carbuncle Award. The Pluke in the Plinth, a pluke, meaning pimple in Scots, recognise the untapped potential of Scotland's disenfranchised towns. 2025's Pluke was presented to Port Glasgow, once the epicentre of Scottish shipbuilding, now dogged by empty high streets and sensational reporting of Scotland's Chernobyl. But Kevin Green of PG25, spearheading the port town's revitalisation through its 250th anniversary, rejected the award. He said towns like Port Glasgow need a leg up instead of a punching down.
It felt a bit like a poverty safari. You know, you're coming here in a town that's got plans for regeneration. The council's got plans, the people have got plans, Riverclyde Homes have got plans. It's the budget. It only took John 5 minutes off camera to actually see the potential of Port Glasgow, and I'm hoping that's what other people see. You know,
the port's rejection led to the award being rescinded and subsequently scrapped, replaced by the softer Heart on Your Sleeve award. The Pluke's founder John Glenday said the award never set out to mock, but shed light on the dormant prospects of Scotland's towns.
We'd all like to live in a perfect world, but sadly it's often very imperfect. The carbuncles are about shining a light on those imperfections, not to mock, but to give a leg up and to show people that this might be how things are as they are, but it's not necessarily how they should be forever.
The Pluke's most famous recipient, Cumbernauld, was a back-to-back Carbuncle winner in 2001 and 2005, but was later recognised as the best town by the same magazine a decade later. John says this shows town improvements don't happen overnight, but perhaps Port Glasgow's seismic efforts in its anniversary year made this the wrong town at the wrong time. The Pluke in the Plinth may be retired, but Port Glasgow walks away with the inaugural Heart on the Sleeve Award for 2025. Tony Maguire, GB News, Port Glasgow.
Thank you so much, Tony Maguire, for that beautifully shot report, actually. I'm not sure why it would ever win that award. And thank you to all of you at home for joining us on Saturday Morning Live today. We'll see you same again next week.
But don't go anywhere, as Dawn Newsom is up next with The Weekend. Dawn, what's coming up?
Lovely, thank you very much, you two. We've got a cracking show for you, totally packed, including how do you fancy Sadiq Khan as your next Prime Minister? Me neither. And you know that free digital ID? Well, it could end up costing you, the taxpayer, £5 billion. Been doing some digging on that one. Also, England's Roses in action this afternoon. We've got an exclusive chat with a former rugby player for England. And also, we've found the perfect getaway for you if you really want to hide away from all the politics, but it's got a scary downside. All of that coming up after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's a bit of a damp start out there for many of us this morning. We've got a band of rain spreading its way eastwards and rather breezy across the north as well, all thanks to this weather front out towards the west of the country. The further east you are, still under the influence of high pressure situated over Scandinavia, but that weather front is going to continue to push its way eastwards as we go through the rest of Saturday. It's going to bring some quite heavy rain to eastern parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, perhaps up to 50 millimetres in places, and perhaps across parts of Northern Ireland in only a couple of hours. So there could be some localised flooding here. Further south, still remaining rather cloudy, the best of any sunshine across the very far southeast, and feeling pleasantly warm in that sunshine with highs of 18 or 19 degrees, around about average for the time of year. As we then go into Saturday evening, we'll continue to see outbreaks of perhaps quite heavy rainfall across western parts of Scotland. The further east you are, staying a little bit drier for a time during Saturday evening. That rain eventually clears eastwards across the eastern parts of Northern Ireland, but plenty of blustery showers feeding in behind. And that rain affecting parts of northern England, wet parts of Wales, southwest England too. And the further south and the further east you are, generally staying a little bit drier into the evening, but the cloud increasing quite quickly here as we head into the early hours of Sunday morning. That band of rain continues to then spread its way southeastwards across southern parts of the UK, swirling around an area of low pressure across the north, so still remaining really quite breezy and quite damp here. But across the southwest, where it will turn a little bit drier, we could see some patchy frost in places, perhaps the odd patch of mist and fog as well to start on Sunday morning.